My wife cheated with my best friend, and now I know he's been secretly in love with her since college. Last month, I found out my wife, Sarah, had been seeing someone else for, I don't even know how long, maybe months? It feels like my entire reality has been a carefully constructed lie. I keep replaying everything in my head, searching for signs I missed, moments where the truth was staring me right in the face, but I was too blind to see it. Sarah and I have been together for 8 years, married for 5. We met in college, that classic story. I was the shy, awkward guy in the back row, and she was the vibrant, outgoing art student who somehow found my quietness endearing. We built a life together, a comfortable one. We bought a small house in the suburbs, adopted a rescue dog named Ollie, and fell into a routine. Friday night pizza, Saturday morning farmers market, Sunday afternoon hikes. It was good, or so I thought. The first hint that something was off was subtle. A change in her phone habits. Sarah had always been pretty open with her phone. We'd leave them lying around, no big deal. But lately, she'd been glued to it, always angled away from me, a nervous energy radiating off her whenever she got a text. I'd ask who it was, and she'd brush it off. Just work, or it's my mom. I didn't want to be the jealous, insecure husband, so I let it go. Then there were the late nights at the office. Sarah works as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm. Deadlines, I get it. But it started happening more and more. Gotta finish this campaign, she'd say, grabbing a protein bar and heading out the door. I'd offer to make her dinner to take, but she'd always insist she'd just grab something there. I started to feel like we were living separate lives. I'd be home with Ollie, watching some dumb show on Netflix, while she was where? The real gut punch came a few weeks ago. I was looking for her laptop charger and went into her office. It was a mess, as usual. Art supplies everywhere, half-finished projects scattered across the desk. I found the charger tucked under a pile of papers. And then I saw it. A small, folded piece of paper tucked inside a sketchbook. My heart skipped a beat. Curiosity, or maybe a sense of impending doom, made me unfold it. It was a note, handwritten. It said, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Meet me at the usual place." Winky face. Mark. My blood ran cold. Mark. There was only one Mark in our lives. Mark, my goddamn best friend since freshman year. The guy who stood next to me at my wedding, the uncle to our dog, Ollie. I felt like I was going to be sick. I wanted to call Sarah, scream at her, demand an explanation. But I couldn't. I just stood there, staring at the note, the world spinning around me. Then, I carefully folded the note, put it back in the sketchbook, and pretended I hadn't seen anything. I needed to think. I needed to figure out what the hell was going on. That night, Sarah came home late, exhausted. Long night, she sighed, collapsing on the couch next to me. I forced a smile. "Yeah, me too," I said. "Ollie missed you." She kissed me on the cheek, a quick, impersonal peck. "I missed you guys too," she said, but her eyes didn't meet mine. Later, after she'd gone to bed, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The note was burned into my brain. The usual place. What was the usual place? A bar? A hotel? Mark's apartment? I grabbed my phone and scrolled through Sarah's recent texts. Nothing incriminating, just the usual work stuff and messages from her mom. But then I remembered something. A few weeks ago, she'd mentioned needing to clear out some old photos from her phone to free up space. I hadn't thought anything of it at the time, but now, I knew I shouldn't do it. I knew it was a violation of her privacy, but I couldn't stop myself. I grabbed her phone from the nightstand, held my breath, and started scrolling through her deleted photos. What I found made my stomach drop, the deleted photos. It was like looking into a different world, a world where Sarah was someone I didn't even recognize. There were pictures of her laughing, her face flushed, holding hands with Mark, in dimly lit bars, cozy restaurants, even a few blurry shots that looked like they were taken in someone's living room. Sarah and Mark were tangled together, radiating happiness. It was sickening. One photo, in particular, stood out. It was a selfie, taken in a car. Sarah was in the passenger seat, grinning, and Mark was behind the wheel, his hand resting on her thigh. The caption, barely visible in the corner of the screen, read, "Road trip." Red Heart road trip? When the hell did they go on a road trip? I felt like I was going to explode. The anger, the betrayal, the sheer disbelief, it was overwhelming. I wanted to smash the phone, wake Sarah up and scream at her, demand answers. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. I needed to stay calm, to gather evidence, to figure out the extent of this affair. I spent the next few hours digging through Sarah's phone. I recovered more deleted photos, text messages, even a few voice memos. The picture that was forming was devastating. They had been seeing each other for at least 3 months. They'd meet for lunch during the workday, go for drinks after work, and even sneak away for weekend getaways when I thought Sarah was visiting her sister. The text messages were even more damning. Flirty, suggestive, full of inside jokes and shared secrets. Thinking about last night, one message from Mark read, "Can't wait to do it again, winking faced." Another, from Sarah, "I'm so happy when I'm with you. You make me feel alive." Alive. Had I made her feel dead? Had our marriage become so stale, so boring, that she needed to seek excitement with my best friend? The thought was crushing. I felt like I was betraying Sarah by snooping through her phone, but I couldn't stop. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful. And the truth was, my wife was having an affair with my best friend, and they were both lying to my face. As the sun began to rise, I finally stopped. My head was pounding, my eyes were burning, and my heart felt like it was being ripped apart. I carefully put Sarah's phone back on the nightstand, climbed into bed, and pretended to sleep. When Sarah woke up, she seemed normal. She kissed me good morning, made coffee, and started getting ready for work. I watched her, my mind racing, trying to reconcile the woman I loved with the woman I had discovered in her phone. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing my stare. "Yeah, fine," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Just tired." "Me too," she said. "Long week." She grabbed her bag and headed out the door. "See you tonight," she called. "Yeah," I said. "Tonight." As soon as she was gone, I got out of bed and went straight to Mark's apartment. He lives just a few blocks away. I didn't call, didn't text. I just showed up, knocked on his door, and waited. He opened the door, bleary-eyed, wearing a t-shirt and boxers. "Hey, man," he said, rubbing his eyes. "What's up?" I didn't say a word. I just punched him in the face. The punch connected. Mark stumbled backward, clutching his nose. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with shock and confusion. "What the hell, man?" he stammered, blood already dripping down his chin. "You know damn well what the hell." I roared, my voice shaking with rage. "You and Sarah? Don't even try to deny it." He didn't. He just stared at me, his face slowly morphing from confusion to guilt. "How? How did you find out?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "I saw the texts, the photos," I spat. "Everything. You've been screwing my wife behind my back, and you've been doing it with my best friend. How could you do this to me, Mark? How could you do this to us?" He didn't have an answer. He just stood there, silent, ashamed. I wanted to hit him again, to keep hitting him until he understood the pain he had caused. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. I needed answers. I needed to understand. "Why?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why, Sarah? Why me?" He sighed, ran a hand through his hair, and finally spoke. "It just happened," he said. "We were working late on a project together, and one thing led to another. I know that's no excuse, but what?" I pressed. "But you couldn't resist? But you didn't think about the consequences? But you didn't give a damn about our friendship, about my marriage?" "I did care," he insisted. "I do care. But Sarah and we have a connection. Something I haven't felt with anyone else." "A connection?" I scoffed. "You call screwing your best friend's wife a connection? You're pathetic, Mark. You're a pathetic excuse for a friend, a pathetic excuse for a human being." I turned to leave, disgusted. "I don't ever want to see you again," I said, my voice cold. "You're dead to me." I walked out of his apartment, leaving him standing there, bleeding and alone. I didn't feel any satisfaction, just a hollow emptiness. I had confronted Mark, but the real confrontation was yet to come. I went home and waited for Sarah. I didn't call her, didn't text. I just sat on the couch, staring at the wall, replaying the events of the past few weeks in my head. The lies, the deceit, the betrayal, it was all too much to bear. Finally, around 6 p.m., I heard the key in the door. Sarah walked in, looking tired but cheerful. "Hey, honey," she said, kissing me on the cheek. "How was your day?" I didn't say anything. I just stared at her, my eyes filled with pain and anger. She frowned. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "Don't play dumb, Sarah," I said, my voice dangerously low. "I know." Her face paled. "Know what?" she stammered. "I know about you and Mark," I said, the words hitting her like a slap. "I know everything." The color drained from her face. She stood there, frozen, like a deer caught in headlights. Then, she finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. How did you find out? It doesn't matter, I said. What matters is that you betrayed me. You lied to me. You slept with my best friend. How could you, Sarah? How could you do this to me? Tears welled up in her eyes. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just happened. It just happened. I repeated, my voice rising. You expect me to believe that? You expect me to forgive you for this? You've been seeing him for months, Sarah? Months. That's not just happening. That's a deliberate, calculated betrayal. She sank to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Please, Michael, she begged. Please forgive me. I love you. I don't want to lose you. I looked at her, kneeling there, tears streaming down her face. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to forgive her. But the pain was too deep, the betrayal too profound. I don't know if I can, Sarah, I said, my voice breaking. I just don't know. I turned and walked out of the house, leaving her there, alone and heartbroken. I didn't know where I was going, what I was going to do. All I knew was that I couldn't stay there, not for another minute. I needed to escape, to get away from the pain, the anger, the betrayal. I needed to figure out what to do next. I drove aimlessly for hours, the city lights blurring around me. Finally, I ended up at the beach, the waves crashing against the shore. I parked the car, got out, and walked down to the water's edge. The cool, salty air filled my lungs. I stood there, staring out at the dark, endless ocean, feeling lost and alone. Was this the end? Was my marriage over? Was my life in ruins? As I stood there, contemplating my future, my phone rang. It was Sarah. I hesitated for a moment, then answered it. Michael, please come home, she sobbed. I need you. Ollie needs you. Please don't leave me. I didn't say anything. I just listened to her cry, my heart breaking all over again. I don't know what to do, Sarah, I finally said, my voice barely a whisper. I just don't know. Just come home, she pleaded. Please. We can talk. We can figure this out. Just come home. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and made a decision. Okay, I said. I'll come home. But as I turned to walk back to the car, I saw something in the distance that made my blood run cold. A figure standing in the shadows, watching me. And I knew, with a chilling certainty, that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot, the figure in the shadows. It was too far away to make out any details, but there was something about the way they stood, the way they were watching me, that sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being observed, targeted. I hesitated for a moment, then pulled out my phone and snapped a quick photo in their direction. The flash seemed to startle them. They turned and disappeared into the darkness. I zoomed in on the picture, but all I could make out was a blurry silhouette. Male, definitely. But who? And what did they want? The rational part of my brain told me it was probably just a random person out for a late-night stroll on the beach. But my gut was screaming at me that it was something more, something connected to the mess my life had become. I decided not to mention it to Sarah, not yet. She was already a wreck, and I didn't want to add to her anxiety. Besides, I needed to focus on what was important, trying to salvage our marriage, if that was even possible. The drive home was silent and tense. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the figure from the beach tailing me. But there was nothing. When I walked through the door, Sarah rushed into my arms, sobbing. Thank you for coming home, she whispered, clinging to me tightly. I was so scared you wouldn't. I held her, feeling numb. Her tears were soaking my shirt, but I didn't feel anything. The anger and the betrayal had created a wall around my heart, a barrier that I couldn't seem to break down. We sat down on the couch, and Sarah began to talk. She told me how sorry she was, how much she regretted what she had done. She said that it was a mistake, a moment of weakness, and that she still loved me more than anything in the world. I listened, but I didn't know what to believe. Could I really trust her after everything that had happened? Could I ever look at her the same way again? Why, Sarah? I asked, my voice flat. Why, Mark? What did he give you that I didn't? She hesitated, then said, It wasn't about what he gave me, Michael. It was about what I felt. I felt seen, alive, like I was more than just a wife, a homeowner, a dog owner. I felt like me. Her words stung. Had I really made her feel so invisible, so trapped? Had I become so complacent in our marriage that I had forgotten to see her, to appreciate her, to make her feel loved? I know that's no excuse, she continued. but I just wanted you to understand. It wasn't about you, Michael. It was about me and my own insecurities and needs. We talked for hours, delving into the deepest, darkest corners of our relationship. We talked about our hopes and dreams, our fears and regrets. We talked about the things we had taken for granted, the things we had neglected. Slowly, tentatively, we began to rebuild. We made a pact to be more open and honest with each other, to communicate our needs and desires, to make time for each other, to rediscover the spark that had brought us together in the first place. It wasn't easy. There were tears, arguments, moments of doubt. But we kept trying, kept talking, kept working at it. We even started going to couples therapy, which helped us to navigate the difficult emotions and to learn new ways of communicating. Weeks turned into months. Sarah and I started to reconnect. We went on dates, took weekend trips, and spent quality time together. We laughed, we cried, we made love. We started to feel like a couple again, a real couple, not just two people sharing a house. But the shadow of the affair still lingered. There were times when I would catch Sarah looking at her phone, and my heart would skip a beat. There were times when she would be late coming home from work, and my mind would race with suspicions. I tried to trust her, I really did. But the doubt was always there, lurking beneath the surface. And then, one evening, I received a text message from an unknown number. It was a photo of Sarah and Mark, kissing. The caption read, "Still think you can trust her?" My world shattered. All the progress we had made, all the rebuilding we had done, crumbled to dust in an instant. I confronted Sarah, and she denied it at first. But then, she broke down and confessed. She said that it had only happened once, a moment of weakness, and that she was so sorry. But this time, I couldn't forgive her. The trust was gone, completely and irrevocably. "It's over, Sarah," I said, my voice cold and hard. "I can't do this anymore. I'm done." I packed my bags and walked out the door, leaving her there, once again, alone and heartbroken. But this time, I didn't look back. As I drove away, I saw the figure from the beach standing across the street, watching me. This time, I could make out their face. It was Mark. He smirked. Seeing Mark standing there, smirking, was like a physical blow. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about something deeper, something more sinister. He hadn't just slept with my wife. He had systematically destroyed my life, piece by piece. I slammed on the brakes, threw the car into park, and jumped out. I crossed the street, my fists clenched, ready to finally end this once and for all. "You," I yelled, my voice shaking with rage. "What the hell is wrong with you? Why are you doing this to me?" He didn't flinch. He just stood there, his eyes cold and devoid of emotion. "Doing what, Michael?" he asked, his voice calm and mocking. "I'm just looking out for you, making sure you know the truth about your wife." "The truth?" I spat. "You call sleeping with my wife and then sending me anonymous photos the truth? You're a sick bastard, Mark. A manipulative, twisted psychopath." He chuckled. "Maybe," he said, "but I'm also honest. Something you clearly weren't getting from Sarah." "Why, Mark?" I repeated, my voice cracking. "Why? We were friends. Best friends. What did I ever do to you to deserve this?" He hesitated for a moment, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something other than malice in his eyes. Was it regret? Guilt? I couldn't tell. "You always had everything, Michael," he said, his voice low. "Everything came easy to you. You were smart, popular, successful. You had the perfect life, the perfect wife. And I was always in your shadow. Always the sidekick, the second best." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. Was this what it was all about? Envy? Jealousy? Had our friendship been a facade, masking a deep-seated resentment that had been festering for years? "I didn't want to hurt you, Michael," he continued. "But I couldn't stand to see you so happy, so oblivious. I wanted you to feel the pain that I felt, the emptiness that I carried inside me. So you decided to destroy my marriage?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "To ruin my life? That's your solution?" He shrugged. "It's a solution," he said. "And it worked, didn't it? You're miserable now, just like me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just about an affair. It was about a lifetime of resentment and bitterness, finally unleashed. "You're insane, Mark," I said, shaking my head in disbelief. "You need help." "Maybe I do," he said. "But it's too late for that now, isn't it? The damage is done." He turned to walk away, but I grabbed his arm. "It's not too late," I said. "You can still stop this. You can still make things right." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of defiance and despair. "It's too late, Michael," he repeated. "It's all too late." He wrenched his arm away from me and walked off, disappearing into the night. I stood there, watching him go, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. The next few weeks were a blur. I moved into a small apartment, started seeing a therapist, and tried to piece my life back together. The divorce proceedings were messy and painful. Sarah was devastated, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive her. The betrayal was too deep, the damage too irreparable. I tried to focus on work, but it was difficult. My mind was constantly racing, replaying the events of the past few months, trying to make sense of it all. One evening, I received a phone call from the police. They told me that Mark had been arrested. He had been stalking Sarah, sending her threatening messages, and vandalizing her property. I wasn't surprised. Part of me had seen this coming. Mark's obsession had spiraled out of control, consuming him completely. I went to visit him in jail. He looked like a shell of his former self. Thin, pale, and withdrawn. "Why, Mark?" I asked, my voice weary. "Why did you do all this?" He just stared at me, his eyes empty. "I don't know," he said. I couldn't stop myself. I felt a pang of sympathy for him. He had destroyed my life, but he had also destroyed his own. He was a broken man, consumed by his own demons. "I forgive you, Mark," I said, surprising myself. "I don't understand what you did, but I forgive you." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Michael," he whispered. "Thank you." I left the jail feeling a sense of closure. The anger and the resentment were still there, but they were slowly fading. I knew that I would never be the same, but I was finally ready to move on. I started to focus on myself, on my own healing and growth. I took up new hobbies, reconnected with old friends, and started to explore new possibilities. It wasn't easy. There were days when I felt overwhelmed by sadness and loneliness, but I kept pushing forward, one step at a time. And then, one day, I met someone. Her name was Emily. She was kind, compassionate, and funny. She had been through her own share of pain and loss, and she understood what I was going through. We started dating, and slowly, tentatively, I began to open my heart again. I was scared, terrified of being hurt again. But Emily was patient and understanding. She showed me that it was possible to love again, to trust again, to be happy again. One evening, as we were sitting on the beach, watching the sunset, Emily turned to me and said, "You know, Michael, you've been through so much. But you're stronger than you think. You've survived and you've learned. And you're ready for a new chapter in your life." Her words resonated with me. She was right. I had survived. I had learned. And I was ready for a new chapter. I smiled at her, took her hand, and said, "You know what, Emily? I think you're right." But even as I said those words, a small part of me couldn't help but wonder, was I really free of the past? Or would the shadows of betrayal always haunt me, lurking just beneath the surface? Life with Emily was different. It wasn't the whirlwind romance of my early days with Sarah, filled with impulsive adventures and naive dreams of forever. This was a quieter, more grounded connection, built on mutual respect, shared experiences, and a deep understanding of each other's scars. We took things slow, deliberately, savoring each moment, knowing how fragile happiness can be. Emily knew everything about my past. I had laid it all bare: the affair, the betrayal, Mark's descent into obsession. She listened without judgment, offering empathy and support, but also challenging me to let go of the anger and resentment that still lingered. She helped me to see that I wasn't defined by what had happened to me, that I was still capable of love, of trust, of building a meaningful life. We bought a small cottage by the sea, a place where we could escape the city and reconnect with nature. We spent our days walking on the beach, exploring tide pools, and watching the waves crash against the shore. We filled our home with laughter, music, and the aroma of freshly baked bread. I started painting again, something I had abandoned years ago. Emily encouraged me to express my emotions through art, to use the canvas as a way to process my past and to embrace my future. One day, I decided to paint the beach. I stood there for hours, capturing the colors of the sand, the sky, and the water. As I painted, I couldn't help but notice a figure in the distance, standing near the water's edge. It was a woman, her back to me. She was wearing a familiar dress, a dress that Sarah used to wear. My heart skipped a beat. Was it her? Had she followed me here? Was she trying to re-enter my life? I hesitated for a moment, then decided to approach her. I walked slowly, cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. As I got closer, I could see her more clearly. It wasn't Sarah. It was someone else, someone I didn't recognize. She turned around, and I gasped. It was Emily. She smiled at me, her eyes filled with warmth and love. "What do you think?" she asked, gesturing to the painting. "Is it finished?" I looked at the painting, then back at Emily. I realized that I had been so focused on the past, so consumed by fear and doubt, that I had almost missed the present. I had almost let my old wounds poison my new happiness. I took a deep breath and smiled back at her. "It's perfect," I said, "just like you." We embraced, and as I held her in my arms, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I knew that the shadows of the past would always be there, lurking in the corners of my mind. But I also knew that I had the strength to face them, to overcome them, and to build a life filled with love, joy, and hope. A few years later, I received a letter from Mark. He was being released from prison. He had completed his therapy, and he was ready to start a new life. He apologized for everything he had done. He said that he understood the pain he had caused, and that he was committed to making amends. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to ignore him, to erase him from my life completely. But another part of me felt a sense of compassion for him. He was still my friend, or at least he had been. I decided to write him back. I told him that I forgave him, and that I hoped he could find peace and happiness in his new life. I never heard from him again. Years passed. Emily and I built a beautiful life together. We traveled the world, raised a family, and grew old together. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, Emily turned to me and said, "You know, Michael, you've come a long way. You've faced your demons, and you've emerged stronger than ever." I smiled at her, took her hand, and said, "I couldn't have done it without you, Emily. You saved me." She squeezed my hand and said, "We saved each other, Michael. We saved each other." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the sky, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I was finally at peace. But even as I felt the warmth of Emily's hand in mine, a small part of me couldn't help but wonder, what if? What if Mark hadn't entered my life? What if Sarah hadn't betrayed me? What if I had made different choices? Those questions would always linger, like echoes in the sand. But I knew that I couldn't let them define me. I had to embrace the present, to cherish the love that I had found, and to live each day to the fullest. Because life is too short to be haunted by the past. And sometimes, the greatest act of courage is simply to let go and move on.